Okay. So today was the first interaction that Manuel and I had. So I met with him after work today, and we went to the tables by the library. I thought the coffee shop would be open so we could get a little drink and then talk, but that didn't happen just because they close at 2 and I got off of work at like 3:15. That was okay because he came over and we immediately like sat down and started talking, and we just started talking about our Friday, and then kind of went into everything for the first interaction. Um, so I guess my initial reaction, usually very shy when I meet someone. I'm not particularly open, so I'll be pretty quiet. But uh, it was just interesting to listen to all of the things that he had to say about his country and his hometown. So he was telling me a lot about Guatemala and just about where he lived. And he said that he was born in this town, and at like the age of 7, he moved with his brother to a city, and that's where he's been since 7 years old, is in the city with his brother, going to school, and so he's been away from his family for a really long time. So he has a mom and a dad, and then he has 5 other siblings, and so it's like the rest of his family lives in the town, and him and his brother live in the city, and so that's kind of how it's been for a while, which is completely different for me because I've been with my family since like ever. Um, so that was kind of different. So he's been kind of on his own for a while. Um, he was telling me that his town is in front of a volcano. That where he's from, there are a lot of volcanoes around, and so he's been able to go to all these volcanoes and kind of visit them. And so his town, the one that he was born at, is like in the middle of a volcano. So there's a volcano right here, and his town's in front of it, and there are 2 rivers that kind of go on either side. And he said, well, the cool thing about the rivers was that one of them was really hot, and the other one was really cold, and so he was just talking about that. Um, let's see. Um, so before he came here to Ozarks, he was working. He was working for a communications company that's based out of Canada, and so he said that like he would get up, go to work, kind of eat, and then continue working. And he said that that was his life for a while. That he enjoyed it, but at times it was stressful just because he was working at a call center, and you know how people are with calling in their problems. Sometimes people are rude, and um, so he's been working for a while. I, I've never worked like not while going to school too. Like I had a part-time job in high school, but I never like worked full-time, so that was different. Um, oh, going back to his village or his town, so he was saying that like in the mountain, like people would still go and like get water. So like how we how I back home and how everywhere here in the United States we kind of have water like on tap. Back home they would get the water from the mountain, and so it'd be like natural water, like without anything, and just be pure water. And I just thought that was really cool, just because we don't really do that here. I would love to do that. Um, he was telling me about some of the holidays that they celebrated too, and one of them was during Christmas time. And I read about this before in the past, and I didn't realize I knew this, but as soon as he started describing it to me, I like it like light bulb came on, and I was like, oh, I know this, I've read about it. And so he said that like during Christmas time they would get like a what's called an alfombra, which is like, it translates into a rug, but it's not like our typical like rugs, like a carpet rug. So it's like a wooden frame, and then inside the frame they would decorate it with like flowers and all these different colors and patterns and like crosses, and then they'd like have like a little procession, I guess, in the town, kind of showing them off. And I was just picturing this, and he was saying how beautiful it was. It sounded like his community was very strong. He said that his town had like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people, and everybody in the town knew each other, which is completely different from back home, because I know like my close neighbors, and then I know my neighbors, or I know my friends from school, but I don't know like every single person in my town. So it was funny because while I say that my hometown is a small town, it's not really small. It just is to me because we're next to Dallas and whatnot. But I just thought it was neat. He was just telling me that during holidays, like during Halloween, they would get up at like 3 in the morning and start cooking, and then they'd kind of share the food that they cooked with everybody in the town back home where his family was. And so I thought that was pretty neat. That it was like a strong community bond. And he was also telling me a little bit about Easter, kind of the same thing. They would cook and then share. And the other things that I noticed, just talking to him, it was really cool just hearing about it. We actually, like a couple of minutes into our interaction, one of our friends kind of came up and started speaking to Manuel in Spanish, and he like was replying to them, and then the girl like looked at me and asked me a question in Spanish, and I responded in Spanish, and it was funny because he looked at me and was like, "You speak Spanish?" Which is a question that I get a lot, and I'm like, "Well, a little bit." And so we kind of talked about that, and he told me about the languages that he spoke. That he speaks like a Mayan language, and he said that his language was dying. It was called Quiche, which you can't find, the translation on Google Translate, but it kind of like roughly translates into like a forest. So Quiche is forest, and he was kind of describing some of like the words that they had, and so like he said kiss. So like kiss in English is like kiss, but he was telling me that kiss in Quiche is like a bad word, and he didn't tell me what it meant, so he was like, he didn't want me to use it, but it was just funny learning about his language. And he said that he's currently learning Spanish and kind of English too, and he was just telling me how in his village he spoke Quiche, and when he moved to the city, he failed a year because he didn't know Spanish. And so I kind of asked him how he felt about that. He said it was, it was okay. He just like got back up and like started learning, and so it's a learning process. And so he was encouraging me to to get better with my Spanish, and he said that he was going to talk to me in Spanish now. I really liked just a lot of the things that he did back home, just how strong the community was, and I guess because of its size and probably its location, and probably because technology doesn't play as big of a role there as it does here. I kind of wish, we had community bonds like that here. I think that would make a difference in a lot of things. But I really enjoyed talking to him and just listening to the stories that he had. It was just really cool because you could, everybody has their own story, so that's neat. But I'm super excited for our second interaction. I feel like as we go along, I'll learn a little bit more about him. So, yes. So it's just really cool just learning about his culture and stuff. He does a lot more like religiously than I do. And he lives a different life than I do just because, I'm from a city and he was from a town. But there were a lot of similarities too, so I was pretty excited about that. We had a lot in common, and we were laughing and just talking, and so it was really cool. So I'm super excited for our second interaction. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but it's going to be fun. I told him that I would think of something really fun to do together. So, yes. Until the second interaction.